Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. So we need somebody with a clapboard to go, take two. Here we go.
Take two. It's hard not to dance in your seat. Like, that's just such a happy little tune on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here, bobbing and weaving.
I actually created that one.
Oh, you did? I love it.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. So I hadn't played music in years. I finally got a keyboard and started playing around and made the theme.
Well, it's perfect. It makes me smile. And that's our goal.
That's what it's supposed to do. So good stuff. So anyway, Yvonne Trost is back to join us this time after, I guess it was about a month ago that you were on the program. And we had such a good time that we figured we had to keep going because 1 hour was not enough. One is never enough. So, I mean, I don't even know if we can pick up from where we were last time. Why don't we just start with what's going on that's new and interesting, and maybe that becomes the basis for where we're going. Because you were kind of telling us some interesting stories about, you know, you're going to colleges and all that kind of stuff. But what's going on with you since our last visit? Like, is there anything really cool going on?
Oh, what's going on with me? I think I continue to grow and evolve in this land of entrepreneurship. Right? It is. Yeah. It's so cool to be a human in process.
Yes.
And not to be afraid of it, but to embrace it. Right? To get like super curious. Like I think I told you guys last time, my new little Einstein equation of E equals MC squared is the energy you want in your life is mindful thinking raised to the power of compassion and curiosity.
Right.
And I'm walking that talk and it's working. And things that I used to be afraid of or things that I used to judge myself for or fear judgment from others, they just, I don't even like barely notice them now. And so I'm like, I have to make everything, I have to do what I'm doing because I want that for everybody. Like, it's just amazing to let go the fear of the unknown and take off all the masks and just to trust and surrender. That if you live with intentionality and you align to your core values, that what's supposed to happen happens.
And it does take practice. I mean, it's not like you just fell into that, right?
No, it takes practice. That's the human being in process part.
Right.
Right. So you practice, and every time you practice, just like anything.
Yes.
The fear decreases. The agility increases, the resilience increases, the creativity increases.
Big time.
Because you go from like convergent fight or flight survival mode to divergent creative thriving mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And every once in a while you're like, oh, shut the gates. And then you're like, no, I'm going to trust. And then you trust and you try and you learn and you grow and you're like, oh, I'm going to do more of that. That's a heck of a lot better.
It's a great point because early on, I think this is probably true for all of us in the earliest stages of that, learning how to do that. What usually happens is we find ourselves, you know, delving into our past and digging up old phantoms and so forth, doing a lot of growing, but it's the kind of growing that, you'll grow, but you'll also get pissed off first. And as you move through all that and you get to the point where that's no longer as much of a factor, that's the shift you're talking about, where now it gets easier.
Yeah.
We're not having to think about that stuff so much. In fact, even if it comes up, it's more like shoulder shrug rather than, oh my God.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say you get pissed off. So I had one client who was getting like really pissed off. And then he's like halfway through, it just clicked like in his hypnosis. I didn't know he was getting pissed off. He told me after. He's like, I didn't like it. And then I loved it. Right. But then I have people like me and others. I never got angry about learning because I felt
not about learning.
But when you go back to your past,
the crap that you had to learn from, that's the part that you get angry about, at least the early
I'm not
days.
Angry anymore. Like,
no,
I don't think I was ever, you know what it is? It's just a different word. So this is the other thing, what's going on. So I let go of the fear of the unknown, right? I am letting go of judgment of self and others. The thing that I now discovered, and it's not anger. See, I'm not relating to that word. We talked about words last time.
Okay.
Self-pity.
Ooh.
So
I think they're kind of overlapped, actually.
they kind of are, but it's about words and what resonates with you, right?
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you're like, well, I'm not angry. Well, you might not be angry, but do you feel sorry for yourself? And then what is that giving you? Right? Quite often when we feel sorry for ourselves or we have self-pity, sometimes we actually have a bad situation. But I've noticed when I am stuck in self-pity, I'm not getting what I actually want, which is help and attention. Like when I have to repeat myself to my kids, or, I'm a single mom of 2 boys and I got to do the yard work and I got to do the housework and I got to do all the stuff. Like when you dwell or when you fall into self-pity, then things like resentment and judgment, and then like, your energy level, your low vibrations, right? So now I'm practicing, even if I have to repeat myself to tell my children to empty out the dishwasher or to take out the trash or to bring the trash cans back. It's like, I am not going to feel sorry for myself. I'm going to choose. Remember last time we talked about, I said, what's the word? I say choose. So do I want to choose to lower my vibration and feel sorry for myself? Or do I want to choose to empower myself and take myself up and get creative? So do you want to choose to converge to survive? Or do you want to choose to diverge to explore, to thrive? So that's what's up.
That's what's up. Great summary. I love that.
Like, that's what I'm thinking. What I'm doing. They're like, do you have anything simpler?
I think that was pretty simplistic. I think you nailed it. I loved it.
I think it's funny too, because the process that you described in a couple of paragraphs what we often take years to go through, right? And when we're going through all this stuff, I think that's what I was referring to earlier about being angry, because I used to get really, really frustrated. Like, why can't I make any progress here? I know, I got stuff I got to work on, but come on, I mean, throw a guy a bone here.
You make a really good point.
I still wasn't getting where I wanted to get to.
You make a really good point. And one of my teachers, she told me the other day, and this is something else I'm working on. Like, I am just, like here, and I'm excited, and I'm going to like share all this stuff. And sometimes people are like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. I can't relate. That's woo woo. That's whatever. But my goal is really to help people, to bring them up there, but I have to meet them where they're at. So I have to be careful to be like, oh, like I'm just like automatically, I want you here, right? Because I want the best for you. But I like what you said, well, about the anger, because a lot of people are angry.
Sure.
A lot of people are sad. Yeah. A lot of people feel lonely. And I went through all those things. But now I'm up here. But I think we do have to talk about those things, so that if you're listening and you're like, it's not possible for me where those guys are at. Like, they don't know the story. They don't know that, I was in an unhappy marriage where I feared, for my safety and my kid's safety. And my 7-year-old son asked me for a new daddy. They don't know that I got a security system, not because of a bad neighborhood, but because my ex still had a key because he still was on the house ownership. So I couldn't change the lock. They don't know all the things, right?
Right.
So I think part of what's also up is I have to start sharing the low vibration things so people can see that you can go from low to high.
Yes.
And this isn't just pomp and circumstance and a dog and pony show and marketing and sales. Like, no, we are coming from our heart because we've gone through these things. And we want the same for others.
Yeah. And it's not like we never stop going through stuff. I mean,
no.
Welcome to life.
I still have stories. But this is the thing. What I teach people is the stuff still happens. You can't control others. You can't control what's around you, but you can control the meaning you give those things.
Yes.
So it's never the stuff. It's never the other person. It's never the experience. that impacts you. It's the meaning you give the experience.
Yes.
Mhm.
Exactly right.
And that goes back to your practice word. I have to practice giving the meaning that I want instead of going into low vibration of the stuff that I don't want.
Yeah.
And am I perfect? No. But you can also ask for help. One really cool thing. So my oldest son was primarily raised by the old Yvonne, like the fear of the unknown, judgmental, control freak, OCD woman, right? And with my ex-husband, who was very volatile and angry. And I see him how he is now. And then I have my younger son, who's like the creative, was the ex's favorite and all that. And what I'm trying to do is, like we talked about, I think last time, teaching them by doing, not by telling, because they don't listen to what you're going to say anyway. And they make assumptions like we all do. So I don't know if we talked about the 4 agreements, but that book by Don Miguel Ruiz, have you guys, like, don't make assumptions, don't take things personally, be impeccable with your word and try your best. We make all these assumptions. And so I'm trying to teach them is like, when I ask for something or when I guide you or when I whatever, it's not that I'm judging you. It's like, I want to be the best mom possible. And I feel like I'm not being a good mom if I don't do those things. Sometimes I get frustrated. And I said, rather than right or wrong, I said, can you give your mom a hug?
Aww.
Or can you just reach out your hand and say, I know you love me, mom, or you're a good mom, or whatever. Because anytime I'm getting upset, it's never about them. It's never about what they're doing. It's about how I feel about myself and what I think it says about me. So am I perfect? Have I mastered that? No. So
thank goodness, I would say. I actually have no desire to be perfect. I used to.
Yeah, it's not actually possible. You can be authentic, but not perfect.
Well, you actually can be perfect. The problem is that when you're perfect,
can? How?
There are people who are perfect all the time. Well, at least in their own minds, they are. But in their perfection, they never actually succeed because every time it's just not quite good enough. It's not perfect.
Well, who defines perfect anyway?
Who try to live perfect lives end up being miserable.
That was me. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
So in this college trip, I'm hangry. I got to go to the bathroom. It's taking longer. Traffic's terrible coming back down from New York. And we stop and I'm like, I just got to get out of here. Like I had to get out of the car. And he comes around and it wasn't being my best self saying that, but I just needed it. Right. I was just drained because there was a fire alarm in our hotel in Niagara Falls. And that was, I need my sleep. So he comes around the side of the car. He opens my door and he puts out his hand.
Aww.
And says, I love you, mama. That was like,
yeah.
I could have never communicated with him in such a vulnerable way before. And the whole time he thought I was judging him. And then once he understood, it was like, oh no, she loves me. She's judging herself for not being whatever kind of mom she thinks she needs to be. Yeah. So I just share that because I just like the fear of the unknown and letting go of that was huge. Now this whole self-pity thing, I'm realizing that I just need support or I just need help or I need to know that it's okay that I'm not quote unquote perfect.
That recognition is huge because most people, and I was certainly one of them for a long time, we make it a practice to point fingers of blame everywhere else.
Yeah.
When blame really shouldn't be a part of the conversation at all, but we bring it in and it can't be us. It's not us. That's the problem. It's everybody else. Life would be fine if everybody did exactly what I wanted them to do.
Yeah. Never works that way. And what I coach people on is I used to be that way too. We give away our power.
Yeah.
You can't control anybody else and you can't control your environment 100%. So do you want to put the control of your happiness in things that you can't control with people, with all those variables?
No.
Absolutely not. Like that's a lose-lose, right?
Yeah. Oh, easily. It's a deep loss, lose-lose.
I even have to catch myself now. How often have you said, you made me yell, you made me, or they made me, or that driver made me? Nobody can make you anything, but we grow up hearing that and we grow up believing it. And then it goes back to my word, choose.
Choose.
Love the word, by the way.
Yeah.
Choose.
Yeah.
You too, Jody Lynn?
Oh, yeah. I love that word. And I think it's so powerful because it puts you back in the driver's seat. Where you are, you're just like, most of the time, not you in particular, Yvonne, but like us in life, like we don't realize we're in the driver's seat and we're like, somebody just drive the car. Like, you're not driving the car properly. Like, why are we going so slow? Why are we going so fast? Like, do you know there's a turn coming up? Like, why aren't you driving? And the person that's with you is like, you're the one sitting in the freaking driver's seat, lady. Like,
I know. And I know at the same time you get exhausted and you just want somebody else to drive. And that's where the self-pity thing comes in, where I'm just like, I'm tired of being in the one that has to drive all the time, literally and figuratively, which he's getting his license soon. But
just a side note.
So if you're listening and you're like, but I don't want to choose. Here's the thing. You might not want to choose, but you need to know you have the power to do so.
mm-hmm.
And then this, I have not said this before, but I'm going to say it out loud and see if it makes any sense. You can choose to choose or not choose, but it's still your choice whether you choose.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You're still choosing whether you want to or not.
I choose to understand that one, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I actually do want some help. But if I do it from self-pity and lack of my own power, that's a low vibration. And then that's a neediness. That's a codependency.
Yeah.
Not a healthy attraction. So I'm attracting people in my life that know I have the power to choose, and they want to help me and sense like when I might need help, or when I communicate I need help, to want to give it to me willingly without me guilt tripping them like I was taught.
I love something you just did there. I don't know if you even realized what you did, but
What
you
I do?
managed to find a way to define codependency without reference to somebody else.
There you go.
That was pretty good.
I'm going to have to listen to the recording and write it down.
I mean, because that's the way codependency is usually defined. It's usually defined in terms of your relationship to somebody else, but it really isn't. It's really your relationship to yourself.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's fascinating.
Isn't it?
It's also
freeing.
It's freeing, and it's also frustrating. I mean, one of my favorite quotes comes from a Apple TV series, Ted Lasso. The truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. And that to me summarizes it. It summarizes the growth pattern. You go through learning something, and the way you learn it just absolutely just wrecks your day. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
And then you come out the other side like, oh, yeah, right.
I guess so.
I get it now. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's right. I mean, you can change from inspiration or desperation, but quite often it takes desperation or something that pisses you off.
Yeah.
What we can do as we learn more about human being 101, 201, 301 is what we can do is we can shorten that cycle of staying in the pissed off mode. Right. So it's not that you should never be pissed. It's not that you should like emotions aren't good or bad. They're just information. Right. So your body doesn't speak English, French, German, Spanish, nothing.
Well, they're also an expression of how you literally do feel. It's about you.
Yes. So you can feel it and then think about it as data. Why did that piss me off? Because whether you work with somebody like me at Limitless, you, or a hypnotherapist, or whatever you do, you can start practicing just with that simple curiosity. And that interrupts your chemical reaction in that fight or flight mode too. Right? Because you can be feeling angry. And you're like, okay, compassion, I'm a 6-year-old. And why does that make me mad? Right? Because it's me making me mad.
Or an assumption, which comes from you, or or a meaning you gave it.
And then you can't lose. You can't lose if you actually inquire.
And there's no wrong or right answer.
No, we have something we call the joy regenerator. And so say something mean to me.
Yvonne, I don't know why I invited you onto the show. This is ridiculous. How's that?
Well, it's not your fault.
Oh,
But what you just said, when you said that, the story I made up in my head was that I'm a phony or I'm not good enough. And it made me feel yucky inside, or it made me feel like I wanted to run and hide. I would like to better understand your intention, because I know that probably isn't what it is, so that I can better understand why I thought that, and we can come closer together.
Can I do a rewind?
Like if that's your person,
Yeah.
what they can't, I mean, like that's going to bring you conflict, will bring you closer when you can approach it right from that mindset. So for a second, like now we're joking, but even in the real world, I do this. And like I feel the sensations quite often. They're in my solar plexus, right? Because that's one of my survival energy centers where my ego lives. And I'll feel it. And I'm like, okay, that's information. I feel threatened. So let me turn on my joy regenerator. Let me get curious and compassionate so that I can move out of that and come up through my throat chakra, breathe, speak my truth and operate up here as my higher self, and hopefully bring them up there too.
This is a really big deal, what we're talking about here. And the reason I say that is I look at how many people today, people I'm close to, people I hear about on the news, people I hear on social media, complaining and talking about the great divide and all the tensions that are going on in the world, and the wars, and there's the politics and the economy and all this other stuff, all these terrible things out there. And I wonder how many of them realize what you're saying and how that relates to how they're experiencing it.
They
because
don't.
That's the big difference. That's the differentiator right there. That's the difference between the person who's trapped in that and the person who's not.
I didn't for the longest time. So people are like, oh, I don't know about this hypnotherapy business. I don't want to be in a trance. I'm like, you're already in a social trance.
Totally.
And even like once you start to wake up and you start to operate, and nobody's like, if you're listening, this is not from judgment. Your hardware is perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. The software requires upgrades, just like the software that you have on your phone or your computer or anything else. So all we're talking about is how to upgrade your software so that you can use the energy that you were given in a more pleasant way to live a more fuller life, versus getting it sucked out of you with all the negativity and the blame and all that stuff in the media, right?
And the best part is you don't have to wait for Microsoft to send the patch.
No. So
you don't have to pay to renew it.
That's right.
So if you're listening and you're like, but I have strong feelings about politics, or I have blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Have the feelings. Don't let them drain you or disconnect you from other human beings that can support you, care about you, love you.
Including the ones that you disagree with the most.
I know. I'm not political, but I have zealots in my life on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all three of us probably do, I would imagine.
Yeah. So it's been interesting that the text messaging and the whatever. And like, I could feel like, okay, you're being a little pushy, or you're invading my privacy, or like whatever. I'm like, oh, I understand. They're fearful on both sides.
Oh yeah. Lots of it. Lots of fear.
Did I tell you the bit about my mom saying my head was stuck in the sand last time?
Oh, really? Oh, you got one.
No.
Cool.
So guys, if you're listening, like I laugh a lot because I believe in adding levity to everything. So that's why I love talking to Jody, Lynn, and Walt, right? They just laugh the whole time, even about serious stuff, because it raises your energy level. It raises your frequencies. So my mom's texting me and she doesn't think anything's wrong with it. She says, yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend and I said, my daughter lives right across the river, but she just sticks her head in the sand, because I live across the river from DC. And I said, I use my joy regenerator. I said, Mom, it's not your fault. But when you said that, right, the story I made up in my head was that you were judging me and there was something wrong with me and I was doing something wrong. I said, was that your intention? So help me understand your intentions. She's like, well, I don't think that's judgmental. That's just stating a fact. And so but then we talked through this. It's super cute. I love her now. She's like, I'm reparenting the parent, and she's lovely. A couple weeks later, she sends me like this video clip of some politician, and they're like, so-and-so stuck their head in the sand. She's like, looks like I'm not the only one with that phrase. I'm like, I said, do you think they were complimenting her?
Yeah.
She said no and just laughed. But the whole point is like, we have, oh gosh, one of my biggest lessons is letting go of right and wrong.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Because in trying to make me right and you wrong, my intention is to help you, to guide you to whatever, like, but if I make you wrong, I just push you further away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also push myself away from you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So maybe they should listen. People should be listening to that too. I'm like, oh, I got to get a different strategy.
Something that I would love to add, because I love this idea, this conversation, and this is being curious and asking these questions is something that I have programmed myself to do for several years, and I teach on it too. But for me, because I didn't feel like I had a voice when I was a kid and didn't know how to express those things, it doesn't happen nearly as fast as you're talking. So like something will piss me off and I'll need time to process, because I have been in places in my life where I didn't even know what's that? I don't feel. I am a stone. I am hard. I just go. So it took a long time to actually understand within myself. So if somebody's listening that feels this too, like it's okay to take a pause and then try and understand and be curious about how you are feeling. What does that mean? What's the meaning behind this? And then come back to the conversation. And something that's even more crazy that I've experienced in this context is with my mom too. So I was repatterning a lot of the history between us and going through that, getting curious of like, you know, why am I so mad at her and all of these things? And I couldn't have a conversation about specifics with her. She just didn't have the mental capacity to go through it or to have that back and forth exchange at the time where I was doing this. She was stuck so deeply in victim and just wouldn't get it. So I couldn't use her. So something that I utilized in that moment was thinking about like the soul and the heart of her as a human being, and then relating that conversation back to that. Would she intentionally, from her, you know, like white light, you know, just beautiful, heart-centered individual, would she say these things or do these things to hurt me? No.
Exactly.
And that helped. And as I reprogrammed that side of things and got curious and really just let that go and realizing, you know, she's got her own stuff to deal with, completely changed our relationship.
Yeah.
Like we went from being like enemies, essentially. We'd just fight and she'd pick on me. And it was just, we never really got along and I didn't like her and all of these things, to fast forward, you know, 5-7 years later, she sends me loving text messages. I'm like, I love you so much. You're my favorite. And time with her. And I love her company. I think she's amazing. But I did all that work without ever having a conversation with her because I couldn't. So if somebody's listening and they can't have those conversations, it's still possible to get curious and go through this process like Yvonne was explaining and choose something new that will completely transform your relationship.
Yeah, you are like you shared the perfect example where people don't have to believe me. They can just hear. It's never about the relationship you have with the other person. It's about the relationship you have with yourself, just like we were talking about earlier. Your energy changed and your ability to think about what meaning you wanted to give it, right? Because you went from her judging you to like, oh, of course I'm enough. Of course she loves me. Right?
Yeah.
Like that is such a beautiful story. We also we have a couple of different things that we do, but I call it cloud conversations. And so we do something very similar in hypnosis as we go through and we think about what were the things, and then we bring the parents in on a cloud and we have the conversation just like you're talking about with their light, right? And when you're in a deep meditative state and you know, like, well, now that they know, like you had your voice, you get your voice in a very safe environment and a very relaxed environment. Mm-hmm. So you could say, Jody Lynn, all the things you needed to say. And then you get to respond as your parents. And even if you don't have parents that you believe will respond, then guess what you get to do? You get to create your ideal parent figure, ideal family Because guess who's your parent now as an adult? You, not your parents. So even if you're listening and you're like, oh, well, my parents would still say mean things to me and they don't have any light and they're dark, evil people, right? That's okay. Because you actually, you reparent your subconscious mind, your mini self in there. You don't need your parents anymore. You can want them, but you don't need them. You have everything that you need within you to reparent yourself. And then it's really hard. I believe, though, that you should attract the family that is not necessarily your blood relatives. It can be, but you're not limited to that. You're limitless. So you get to attract the type of family that you want. And hopefully your blood relatives and your family are smart enough that they want to be a part of it because you're a beautiful, love and light individual.
They eventually come around.
Some don't, but that's okay. It's still a win-win if you're your authentic self. It's a lose-lose if you keep pushing yourself down to try and please somebody else just because they happen to have, a bloodline. But if we go back to our Journey of Souls book, that kind of makes that even easier to think, oh, I chose them for that particular reason. But we won't digress into that.
Oh, good.
I'm not sure if it's digression or not, but yeah.
I love that. That's a wonderful story, Jody Lynn. Yeah. And I hope if you're listening, you understand, like, there's no one right way. We're offering all sorts of options. Some things work for introverts that work for extroverts. And maybe there's no such thing as introvert and extrovert. And it's just how you're feeling at that time. But just like, that's what I'm talking about with divergence. Get curious, right? We're talking about some different approaches today, but there's a gazillion out there.
Yeah.
And the one that is the best one is the one that actually works for you, that you'll do.
Great point. I love it. You just summarized 12 years of podcasting, by the way.
100%.
Tell me more about that. How did I do that? What did I say?
I mean, I've done over 2,000 episodes. I've done, hundreds of interviews with different people, numbers of interviews with the same people often, because I have co-hosts. We're often doing shows together. And the one theme that plays out over and over and over and over again is that I have so much to learn from other people's perspectives. And then the part that I mentioned how the truth sets you free, but first it pisses you off. One of the first ways that I learned that was in realizing that the guests who I disagree with the most were the ones that I learned from the most.
Yeah. They're your teachers.
Not necessarily that I would like them afterward.
It's not required.
It's not required. No. I mean, really, I tell this story all the time. I mean, I should probably try to dig up the recording if it's still around someplace. I don't think it is. But there was only one time that I ever didn't publish the episode. And I learned so much from that. Because
Not publishing it or the content of it?
The content of it. I didn't publish the content.
Oh, we got to do that now, maybe, huh?
Yeah, it was because it was a young guy who had made his first million on his first try at age 18. And he had not gone through any kind of struggles or traumas to get there. And he was arrogant as could be.
Oh, yeah.
and so he had nothing to teach me. And that's what I learned. You have to go through struggles in order to have something to teach me.
Yeah.
So even though I didn't publish the episode, I learned a ton from that.
Yeah, I love that. And that goes along with one of my teachers that was just sharing with me, like, people need to know not like all the great stuff of where you're at. Yes. But they need to know that it's possible for them to get there. And most people see that through when they can relate to you. And most people are seeking change or seeking support or growth because of a struggle. Not because of all the woo-woo stuff I want to tell them. That's going to actually be woo-hoo once they get there. But,
well, the woo-woo may actually be why the listener came to listen in the first place.
True.
But it's not necessarily what's going to keep them listening.
Yeah. So far, it has been like getting people banging on my door. So. I live in DC Metro, so not a lot of woo-woo advocates here. All sorts of other advocates. So.
I lived. I didn't live all that far away from you. I lived in Warrenton, Virginia.
Okay.
Which is
I'm in Arlington.
2 hours south. well, without traffic it'd be an hour, but with
Yeah,
traffic it's
5
2 hours.
hours.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I know the people who live in that area, and you're right. But there's an amazing amount of it though.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a bit.
Yeah. It's I love it because it has all the diversity and culture
It
of a
does.
city,
Yeah.
but I don't live in a concrete jungle.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, one of my
Like
favorite places to go was to oh sure, now let's just go right out of my head. Um Begins with an A,
Old
south of
Town
DC.
Alexandria?
Alexandria, yeah. I don't know where it went. It just
That's
disappeared.
alright.
I
Yeah,
used to love going, I was married at the time. We used to love going into Alexandria and just
I love
hanging
it.
out on the shore, on the harbor there. And the the diversity of life of people who would come down there was just astonishing. I mean, there were buskers, there were tours, there were, kids hanging out and playing together. There were old people. I was like this complete range of
Yeah.
people all in that one spot every time we went down there. It was
It's a
great.
gift. It's a gift.
Yeah.
Like my kids, I don't have to worry about I shouldn't worry about anything, but I grew up in a town of 2,400. There's 2,300 now if you drive through Altamont, Illinois, but there was
Okay.
2,400 when I was
So
growing
talk
up.
a little bit.
But yeah, everybody, kind of looked the same, thought the same, acted the same. And so it was great for me when I went to St. Louis to be exposed and when I went to Spain.
Mm.
But it's nice when you just start that way, and you can learn so much from different cultures and different people. I think it keeps that aperture open. So I'm blessed for that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. I've learned the most from the people I'm different from. I love the people I'm similar to. They're some of my best friends, but I love learning from the people who I'm really different from.
Yeah, and that's a gift in of itself. So many people are afraid of people that are different than them or have different
True.
thoughts.
Yeah. And that was me early on, to be perfectly honest. I mean, if you had asked me, so like I started the podcast 12 years ago, if you'd asked me, say 13 years ago, was I willing to sit and listen to a bunch of people I don't agree with for the next 12, 13 years? I was, are you nuts?
It sounds like torture. Why? How would I do that?
Yeah.
If you lay it out that way, like who would sign up for that one, right?
Right. It's such a blessing though to have this. I just if you're listening, number one, like lean into gratitude. Like this is cool. Like this is nice. This is connection. I didn't have any of this growing up. Right? And if you're listening and you think, oh, my parents can't change or whatever, just start sharing. Right? Because it only takes one thing. Was like, oh, well, that was a good experience, or oh, I enjoyed that conversation. So if you're listening and you know somebody that is in this victim mindset or doesn't want to learn from others or what have you, don't try and like necessarily change them, but you can offer opportunities for them to expand their horizons. Like it doesn't take much to forward this show.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
Right.
But what if they don't want to take the opening? Like you've tried to open many doors. I have somebody that I'm thinking of in my life who is stuck in victim about her parents. She was very close to her mother, not close to her father, just in her 40s now, and still blaming her father for the way her life is today and how she is today. And that for me is super frustrating. Trying to approach everything with compassion and love and trying to see somebody else's point of view, because I know that, I can see my own perspective, but I'm very gifted at seeing many perspectives at once. But it still irritates me when she won't open the door. She won't walk through the door, nothing to try and change herself. So
does she want to change?
Well, her actions would say she's choosing no.
Yeah.
But I mean,
so one of the things that we do, I mean, you could send her to our self-love quiz if she'll take it, unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz.
Yeah.
And it gives you insight about your way of being, things for you to contemplate with. There's 5 minutes and there's no need to do anything. What we then do is we ask, well, what's your magic wish? I'm not judging you. I'm not trying to change you. Like that was, I would used to be, and I am a recovering fixer. Right. What I now see, and it's been great in my Limitless You community, like I have all these ideas, but now I've learned like people need to be, they can't be pushed. They can't be even strongly guided, right? Like you have to understand what it is that would be valuable to them.
That I don't know.
That begins with a question. Like if I had a magic wand and you had a wish, what would it be for? Quite often what we get is, I want less of this or none of that, or like it's what they don't want.
Oh yeah, that's prevalent.
Because that's what they've spent all their time surviving versus thriving. So then you get to the root of it. Then you can, then you know a little bit. And then there's this really fun, cool exercise. You can download it for free. It's in our resources, unlocklimitlessyou.com/resources. Discover your why, or get to the root of it. I can't remember what we named it. But then you ask, well, why is that magic wish important to you? So you're not telling Jody Lynn, you're not telling anything. You're not guiding to anything. You're asking. Okay. So whatever her magic wish is, you say, well, why is that important to you? And she has to answer that. Well, why is that important to you? And you go through that 7 or 8 times. And it's a way to kind of get to your subconscious, but it's not from judgment. It's from pure curiosity. And then you get to this where you're like, oh shit, I didn't even know that. Like what people want. Oh, sorry, am I not supposed to cuss? What people want at the beginning.
Not a problem. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Right. Is usually like symptom removal or external acquisition. But it usually comes down to something much, much deeper rooted in their core.
Yeah.
Totally. So that would be something I would try with her. You're not telling, you're just asking. Like, let's have fun. Like you do. I don't know if she's into that, but my girlfriend and I, we do annual like vision boarding and manifesting and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not promoting drinking, but if she likes wine, get her a glass of wine or something and just say, let's be creative. If we had a magic wish, what would we want? Because she needs to start, not she needs to. It's a really good opportunity for her to go within. Because anytime you say, oh, well, here's this thing. Well, if you're saying here's this thing, then there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah, the key word I think you pulled out earlier was choose. She has the opportunity to choose. Which way does she want to choose right now?
Yeah. And she doesn't even know, probably.
Probably not.
Right. Because if she's stuck in victimhood, that's where our codependency comes back in, right? It's almost like I have somebody that's close to me, their child is stuck in that. Because if they are a victim, then they'll get attention. If they're a victim, then people will dote on them or help them, or even if it's negative attention, you're like, well, why would you want that? Your subconscious mind, again, is only there to make you survive and stay alive. And so if you had a crappy childhood and you always felt like things were being done to you, then your subconscious mind said, well, I was alive. So let's keep creating that.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, even my son, right? Like he kept creating. When there's a lovely family gathering, he would stir the pot because his subconscious mind was saying, oh my God, you need to survive. This is getting too close. You're going to get hurt again. Distance yourself so you don't get hurt. Right.
That was a big breakthrough for me, was when I finally recognized that no matter how seemingly crazy somebody else's motivation might be, there's always a payoff. I may not know what that payoff is, but there's always a payoff. When I finally grasped that idea, that made it easier for me to let go of, oh my God, I got to help them. Oh my God, I got to fix them. Oh my God, I got to do something to solve their problem. And let me get more into the mode of, I'm willing to let them be who they are. And I'll be there for them if they need me to be there for them. Certainly, I'll love doing that. But if it turns out that no matter what I do, they're not open to it, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them being who they are.
Yeah. So the best thing you can do is help them be curious. There's
Yeah.
another tool in that resources section. I think it's so much fun. It's called the limiting belief lie detector.
Ooh.
Limiting belief lie detector. I love that. What a great title.
See, I was born a creative, shoved into an analytics body and mind and finance major. So now it's like all coming out. Your subconscious, the problem you have, like her self victimhood, whatever you want to call it, is her subconscious mind solution to something it fears is worse. So like Walt's saying, like that's the payoff. Her subconscious mind is thinking, you got to feel this way or you're going to be alone. Nobody's going to care about you. Nobody's going to think you need anything because she hasn't learned to use her voice and speak her truth probably yet. Right.
Or this situation, all the stuff I'm carrying explains why I'm such an asshole sometimes, or I don't get close to people, or why, whatever.
Yeah. 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 Well, and I put mine in there so you can see, you can go and download it. And I put mine and my partners in there so you can kind of see how it works. Right. Because that was mine. I was very judgmental. I'm a right machine. I was very defensive, but all I really wanted was a kumbaya hug. But my mind said, no, that's not safe. You'll be judged. So you can, I'm just gonna turn this off. You can download that and start to see like the thing that I really want. I want this thing. Right. But if I get this thing, then a bad thing might happen. So what is that bad thing that your mind thinks you're getting protected from? So I do this instead, and I put up with all this crap, even though what I really want is this, because anything is better than the bad thing I don't want. Right?
Yeah.
And so you work through that. So you can ask yourself, okay, so what does it do for me?
Powerful question.
Yeah. Not saying it's wrong or right.
Yeah.
Like to your point, Walt. Right?
Yeah.
What does it do for you? Because we don't see it. It seems crazy, right? But imagination is more powerful than logic every single time. Their imagination, or sometimes even ours, is just not working for us. It's working against us, but it thinks it's saving us. So ask the question, well, what does that do for you? Like out of sheer curiosity, without judgment, what does that do for you? And quite often you're going to come up with, people will have like, well, you say, okay, this is a mismatch. Another fun thing we do. What would it be like if you didn't have it? And then they list out a bunch of good things, right?
It's funny because I've done exactly what you just described. I've asked that question in that context. And what I find often happens is the person I ask the question to reads the telegraph. Like, oh, I see where you're going with this. And so they start to backtrack. They back up.
I have both. I have both, right? So my challenge is this. What would life be like without the challenge? And what does the challenge do for me? Because both can be true.
Sure.
I'm not trying to goat them or lead them or whatever. It's their truth, not my truth.
Right.
But one of the rules of the mind is it can't hold two conflicting beliefs.
Well, Hegel thought you could, but that's another topic.
And guess which is stronger? Your subconscious or your conscious after you're 10 years old?
Subconscious.
Yeah. So if that's got the thing that it thinks it's doing for you, the imagination part, that prefrontal cortex logic part of what it would be, how great it would be if you didn't have it, it's going to lose every time. Until you can see that what it does for you, then you go into, Walt, you go into, okay, has it ever, have you ever been able to get what you want without this challenge? So Jody, Lynn, maybe for your friend, have you ever had somebody you can trust without playing the victim card? I mean, we wouldn't use that word, of course, with her, but I just don't know. Right. And then you get the mind to see like, oh, actually, that's not true. And I have real life experiences that show me that it's not true. Right. And then after that, you go to limiting belief lie detector. And then you look at that every time, that limiting belief lie detector. Right. I tell people print it out and put it by whatever, your nightstand or whatever. Anytime you're feeling something, you have to remind yourself. You have to remind your little mini me. And then you get to take action and test. Like we said, it takes practice.
Yeah.
But man, is it cool when you're free of it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's worth the practice, just like anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to watch other people going through that growth pattern too.
Oh yeah. I have the best job in the world.
Including the ones who you don't think are going to do it. The ones who you think are going to be the most resistant. It's really fun when you see them, break the ice, so to speak.
Yeah. And even I've had clients where I'm pretty good at reading energy, but sometimes they're so well guarded and poker faced that I'm thinking it's not working. But that's then my little limiting belief lie detector saying, oh, you're not good enough. You're not helping them change. You can't see it. And then they say something like that's so profound. And then they're so happy. And I'm like, oh, so you can't judge a book by its cover is like beyond the truth. And the more you tune into like what you can't see with your eyes and the energy and observation of action, like it's really cool. Human beings are
kind of fun too. I mean,
fascinating.
because you're using it in sort of a, I guess I might call it a clinical or a coaching sense. But you can take the same approach, the same curiosity context, and just apply it in your personal life, in your, with your family or, friends or business associates or whatever.
Yeah, like I sit at my kid's soccer game and it's just like it's like a movie. I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
Like, or you go out to a restaurant and it's not from judgment, it's from curiosity. And the more that you can learn and grow and shine your light, the more people who feel safe to shine theirs.
Yeah, that's the ripple effect. We talk about that a lot, that ripple effect. You make a change of some kind in your own life for the better, and then shortly afterward, you notice somebody else made a similar change or had a similar experience.
It's so cool. Like I was telling I call it my tribe, my weekly masterminds with my group coaching. I'm like, my cheeks hurt because we do a share at the beginning, and I was just like constantly smiling, and my mouth wanted to go like wider, and the face didn't work that way. I love the ripple effect. It's powerful. And that's why I say, like I have the one-on-one coaching, but I give everybody the group mastermind, the group experience for free when they're in the one-on-one, because it's the most powerful, like lovey-dovey, whether you're lovey-dovey or not, like just the energy and the connection. And we just have to create that outside of these Zoom calls. And then we just walk around and everybody is feeling like they're vibrating up here and connecting, and we let go of judgment.
And the more we practice it, the more we get feedback that tells us that we're doing it, that we're on that journey, that we're on that path. I got it just this morning, actually. I now I can't believe I'm saying this. I have 3 VAs now. I just brought a VA on recently to take care of all the stuff associated with doing the program here, to take care of the LOA Today podcast. And she and I were talking this morning. And she was going on and on about how I'm such a positive person and I have such an influence on her. And she's learning so much from me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is something.
Yeah.
It kind of comes out of the blue, but when it comes, it's a reminder that just all that work you're doing on yourself is paying off in ways you didn't expect.
I know. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm just like, it's like a win-win-win. Right? Like there's no lose involved. Like it's like limitless wins. Like it just keeps going.
Yeah.
I just love it. Yeah. I hope what is that? I love it and I want more of it. I can't remember. I was going to go into song, but I can't remember the song.
That's when you know that the vibration is really high. People start breaking into song. That's when you know you've really gotten to that high level.
Or maybe it was cheerleading. I don't know. Oh, goodness. Yeah. I love this. You guys are amazing.
I'm glad that we brought you back.
Me
Even if we had
too.
some technical difficulties to get the show going today, it was worth it. This has been a lot of fun as usual, just like the first one. It was really
Absolutely.
good. Yeah.
I feel the same.
I'll have Jen, my VA for LOA Today. I'll have her add you to our list of people. Like every once in a while, there's like somebody who cancels, and can we get a last minute person? And usually we can't, but sometimes we can. And so I'll have her add you to that list in case we get a cancellation or something.
Sounds great.
See if Yvonne is available.
There you go. We're gonna like raise the roof.
Yeah. Well, that's so fun because that's exactly what that's what your daily dose of happy is. It's about raising the roof. It's about raising that vibration for ourselves and for listeners and for each other. And in the process, raising it for, having that ripple effect, reaching out to society in ways we don't even know about.
Yeah.
That to me is one of the coolest things, the ripple effect. I really do. I mean, I keep coming back to it, but I think it is so freaking cool because of all the different ways it comes back that I don't expect it.
Yeah. I've started asking for signs that are not expected to know that you're on the right path, or that, things are happening. And then like things will happen. Like, for example, we went from Rochester to home, and then the next morning I go to the gym and I come out, my car doesn't start. And I'm like, oh, but then I'm like, this is amazing, because I was in middle of nowhere country, New York State. And then the guy comes and he's fabulous and amazing and super high energy. And then he notices a nail in my tire, which I wouldn't have not noticed. And then we're going to another university this weekend, and my son's learning to drive. Right. So like, I could have been like, oh, my day sucks. First, the car didn't start, and then I got a nail in my tire. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful, because we could have been in the middle of nowhere, New York. Yeah. My son could have been driving. There could, just lean into gratitude, even when things are crappy, and like ask for those signs, right? Those signs that it's happening.
And by the way, pay attention to the signs too when they show up.
Yeah, I got the tire plugged.
Yeah,
but it really shows me, like, and then when you start doing this and you look at these signs, and you're like, oh, it's happening for me, not to me. Like the old Yvonne would have been in her self-pity party. I'm a single mom and I got to do this and then this and that, and la, la, la. But it's like total game changer. Yeah. Right. So whether you feel like I can never get there, number one, don't say or think anything you don't want to be true, because your subconscious mind's job is to make it true. It's not just like positive mantras and talk. It's like neuroplasticity and brain science. Just don't say it. And then, but even if you're thinking, oh, I don't know, that's okay. You don't have to know. Just start trying it. Yeah. That's the fun. Get curious. Yeah. And then you can go from like wherever you're at, right? Like I was almost depressed, feeling unsafe, in a terrible, unsafe marriage with 2 children that needed me. And I didn't know how I was going to like make the money, because I couldn't buy a new home because Arlington's expensive and you have to be apart for a year if you have kids before you can get a divorce, right? And I was miserable at my job. So it's not, guys, this is not all sunshine and rainbows. But from going from there, and even last year, I was in a job last year that I thought I had to be in for another 7 to 10 years until my kids went to college. Even though it wasn't my calling, I didn't really love it, but I thought it paid the bills and I had to just stay there, and I didn't get to be me. And then I did the unlock. Right? So it doesn't have to be as far away as you think it is.
That's a great point.
Like I changed my career and my whole mindset. I mean, granted, there was a process, but that final quantum leap, pun intended, was only 3 to 6 months to going from a business and IT strategy consultant that was successful, stable, just like my mama wanted, to a hypnotherapist and happiness coach as an entrepreneur, where I got to figure things out and generate demand. And I don't have an IT department, and I don't have a marketing and sales department. Right. So like, if you're listening, if I can do it with all that, you can do it too. You deserve to be happy.
Tell people where they can find it.
Well, inside. But where they can find
that's a great answer. That's probably the best answer I've ever had.
Yeah. But if you need help finding it inside of you, they can find me at unlocklimitlessyou.com. And there's a place where I said the quiz is there, the free resources are there, and you can book a free call, discovery call there. And whether you work with me or not, my intention of that call is, even if we don't exchange value, I am going to give you value. So if you're curious about what might be inside of you that you want to unlock, so that you can live without masks, you can live without judgment, you can find your path, I'm happy to help.
That's beautiful. Jody, Lynn, we got to be quick, but what's your summary for today?
I can sum it all up with something that you said in the very beginning, Yvonne. Embrace being a human in process. I think that is the most beautiful journey. And I've said it before on our show that you are like Disneyland. Go explore and have fun. And you just proved it again today.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that.
I love that too. Yeah. So I want to wrap it up by saying thank you guys both very much for all that you do, including what you did here on this program, because I often make the point that we need to be thanked for all the ways that we help out. We don't know what the result is. And that's another situation here. There are listeners who are grabbing onto what we shared today, and they're going to benefit in ways we don't even know about. So I continue to thank you for that, but I also celebrate the fact that you did it with me, and that it was we all did this part together. This was fun. Not only were we putting out ripples, but we were doing it in a fun way.
Yeah, we're like surf on the ripples.
Surf on the ripples. Ooh, yeah.
I'm not a surfer, but why not?
Why not?
I love it. So thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.